Welcome to this episode of the Iowa Beef Collective TV. We are here today. We're actually stationed out in Earlham, Iowa for this one, but we're talking to Indianola, Iowa native, Dr. Bert Moore. I've known Bert quite a while, but knew that when we started this podcast TV series that I needed to speak with Bert and get some of his history on a number of different topics. If you will, please, Bert, just introduce yourself and kind of give us a 30-second elevator speech of who Dr. Bert Moore is.
Well, I'm a native Iowan and grew up in Iowa Falls, and like 245 acre rented farm, and we milked cows, and we had a few pigs, and we had beef cattle and chickens, and a diversified farm, and I finally ended up at Iowa State. As has already been indicated, that's where I met Steve Radakovich too. And at the end of my Iowa State tenure there, why I wasn't quite ready. My intention was to go back to the family farm and wasn't quite ready to do that. And I said, well, maybe I'll try graduate school. And I asked a couple of people about graduate school, and my advisor said, well, if I had to go anywhere, I wouldn't go anywhere other than where I did. And he'd gone to North Dakota State. And I'd never been in North Dakota, didn't know anything about it. But basically, on his advice, why I went up there and started graduate school. And that was a really fortunate thing in my life, in my opinion, that I was able to land in North Dakota and had a great career up there and great people and great students, and ended up teaching, staying in North Dakota for 43 years and on the faculty of North Dakota State University. So that's what kind of was a summation of the early part of my career, I guess. So
We visited at length about your judging coach tenure and how things changed over that time period. So, talk about some of your early teams and the recruiting process, if there was one, or how livestock judging sort of. We don't have to stay on the beef part of it. We can venture away from that. We know we're all obviously multiple species in judging, but talk about the evolution of that at NDSU and kind of how your teams came together in the early years versus maybe towards the end of your career there.
like I say, I think I was kind of fortunate where I landed because my reason for going there was my advisor said, well, they got some really good livestock people there, and you'd like it there, and good people and that sort of thing. And I had found out too that they had a strong livestock judging program. They'd won the national contest just a few years before I ended up going there. And so I went in and just started graduate school and kind of phased in it, kind of enjoyed it. And anyway, then the department chairman asked me if I'd like to teach or coach the livestock judging team. And it was a really positive experience for me at Iowa State. And so I said, I jumped at the chance. And from that point on, the students that we got there at North Dakota, I think in some respects, again, I think it was fortunate because virtually all of them were first generation college people. Their parents had not been to college. And they were really an eager bunch of people that really, really wanted to learn things. And even going to the point where I had a few of the very early teams that actually they hadn't spoken English until they went to grade school. Maybe that seemed a little bit hard to believe, but there were kids that came in that had pretty strong accents. It doesn't matter if it was Scandinavian or German or Czechoslovakian, but they had pretty strong accents, and to school those into proper English and giving oral reasons and so on. That was always kind of a bit of a challenge from that standpoint as well. But great people, and they came from really, really solid backgrounds. The kind of kids that you just are glad to be able to work with and were eager to learn. I think as I stayed there, I actually coached 40 senior livestock judging teams, and over the years, I did in fact have second generation, had their parents on the on judging teams and second generation people. As you know, why over that 40-year time span, why the whole population has become much more worldly. Case in point, there were a lot of kids that had never been out of the Dakotas until we went on a judging trip. I recall one time we were on our way to a workout in South Dakota, and I heard a voice from the background of the van that said, "Well, this is the first time I've been in South Dakota." From those roots, I guess that these people came. That's one of the things I really truly I've really enjoyed and appreciated about the state and about the people that were there. As we did transition, of course, why, they became, I'd say, people just became more worldly. They had been more places and those types of things, and yet some of those values that I think is typical of agriculture, not just North Dakota, but those values that agriculture instilled in these young people really had a lot to do with my enjoying my career there for that long period, that particular period of time. Through those times, while we saw some really, really drastic changes as far as livestock were concerned, we had to adjust to those kinds of changes. And also, I still think that kind of being in that area, why it still tempered my approach to things a bit from the standpoint these people came from mainly from commercial livestock operations, and they weren't taken up as far as some of the glitz and such that the show ring has offered to them. And so I think it helped keep me a little bit grounded too. But that was the kind of students that we had to work with. Case in point, in terms of what's changed, I remember I had the champion steer at our county fair in 1960. He weighed 915 pounds, and if you equate that to a carcass weight, it's less than 600 pounds. I think the last figures say that our carcass weight is over 900 pounds now. So it takes a little different kind of a critter to adjust to that type of thing. And so making those adjustments, which were and sometimes basically badly needed, some of the changes weren't needed as bad as eh, as we kind of thought they did at that point in time. But these kinds of changes were things that you had to adjust to as far as coaching livestock judging teams were concerned as well. I think the more dramatic change, that occurred as far as livestock occurred and was more rapid was changing from one direction to another was in the swine industry because they could change so quickly that way as well. And keeping adjusted to that, why that was important too. But trying to keep grounded with a practical approach to things. Why I still believe that North Dakota was good for me from that standpoint as well.
We're going to pivot a bit, and a lot of folks who know know that you just finished a book not long ago, recording the entire history of the Shorthorn breed. I want to dig in a little bit to kind of what made you a historian of the breed, and you've kept every book, you've got tons of memorabilia. So when did that kind of start, and what I guess pushed you to keep that kind of stuff and just become a historian for the breed?
I tell people that I grew up on Shorthorn milk because we had milking Shorthorn cows, and so and then we got some beef cattle. And when I joined the American Junior Shorthorn Association, it was 1954. I still have my certificate from that membership. But at that time, I was already a third generation Shorthorn breeder because I have registration papers from my maternal grandfather from the 1920s. And so this was on both sides of my family. Both sides of my family, my parents' families raised shorthorn cattle. I remember we started getting a few sale catalogs, and I really was fascinated with these sale catalogs. I also remember that when we got enough registered cattle that we had to have a notebook to put the registration papers in. That was kind of a big deal at that time. Just from a fairly, and I've always been interested in history. I mean, I like history and so on. Things kind of end up evolving, I guess. I have sale catalogs from that I've collected over the that are from the early 1900s and so on, and I have volume one, number one of the Shorthorn World, which was first published in 1916. From those resources, why I was always interested also in extended pedigrees. I'd taken the right amount on big extended pedigrees and so on. And why this was fascinating to me, I don't know. I really don't know why it was, but it sure seemed to be. When they finally then announced that they were going to have a 150-year celebration commemorating the establishment of the American Shorthorn Association, why one of the goals of that group was to publish a history book. There have been a number of history books already published about the history of the breed, of which I have, if there's one that has been published that I don't know about, or that I don't have, it's because I don't know about it. So I just had collected all these things, and when we moved in our current residence, there was a room there, and my wife graciously said, "Well, this is where you're going to put your Shorthorn memorability." And that particular room is called the Tie Out Lounge, and people who have shown cattle know what that makes reference to. But I do have a big collection, and because I had these resources, why people were kind of drawn to the fact they knew that I had those and said, "Well, you need to be involved in writing this history book." And at the same time, I had helped Dr. Bob Hogue, who was a previous CEO of the Red Angus Association. He had written a Red Angus history, and then I actually helped write 3 chapters of the Simmental history, which he was the lead author in. And so, enlisting Bob's help, who, if you don't know him, why he is a superb writer. He writes regularly for the Western Livestock Journal. He has a collection of livestock memorabilia that I meant pictures. I'm sure that's larger than most any you can imagine. And so, enlisting his assistance, why we did embark on writing this to commemorate the 150th anniversary of the establishment of the American Shorthorn Association. And that was, I guess we called it a labor of love. My primary responsibility was to be the fact gatherer, because I had the resources to be able to gather these facts from, and some of these things would turn over to Bob, and he has a unique ability of turning facts into prose, and to various things that are very readable. We think we made a good combination. The book's been nicely accepted, and I guess I'm honored in the fact that I was able to participate in that effort.
I've got a signed copy. It'll never leave wherever I live. And actually, I got my father a copy for Christmas, and he has certainly enjoyed reading it in the wintertime when they're not doing much farming. I do want to kind of, I guess, pick your brain a little bit. There's a lot of probably folks that are of the age that don't remember, or certainly don't even maybe know it existed. The Chicago International. You attended several. And most of what we would call the Chicago International is now kind of Louisville. Um, I guess talk about your experiences at Chicago, and when Shorthorns were kind of king, if you will. That was kind of where it was at. Kind of just chronicle what that was like, and maybe how it's different than today.
that is interesting topic again for me because I was fortunate in the fact that when I was in high school, my dad's sister lived on the outskirts of Chicago. We could go and stay with her and then attend the international. And my first international was 1957. I still remember this was the glory days of livestock shows, and Chicago was it was Mecca as far as a livestock show was concerned. I was fortunate in the fact that I was able to go. But 1957, I remember vividly them picking the grand champion steer. It was shown by Sue Secadino of West Terre Haute, Indiana. It was a Hereford steer named Honeymoon. I couldn't name you. I can tell you another exhibitor of a champion steer, but it made such an impression on me, and the show was so glorious and such that it made an impression on me that has obviously stayed for a long period of time. And I was fortunate enough to be able to attend every international livestock judging or international livestock show from 1957, with one exception until it closed in 1975. So I saw that transition as well. Back in the period of the 1960s, why the champion Angus bull could be at that time probably figured on merchandise for $1 million, and he and his progeny as well. Also, I saw some changes as far as time and trends were concerned. One of the years that I remember vividly was 1969, because we've kind of identified that as a transition year when the acceptance of larger cattle actually um, was being promoted. Uh, the Angus Bull Great Northern was grand champion at the '69 International. The first crossbred champion steer named Conico, a Charolais Angus steer, was grand champion steer. And he weighed 1,250 pounds and was a yield grade two, choice yield grade two. That same year, another bull called Weston Trademark III, Filet, he was nicknamed, was shown, and he stood second in his class because he just wasn't quite, he was just too far out there at that time as well. And then from that point on, why there was an acceleration as far as the frame race that occurred from that point on as well. During that same time, through the '70s and '80s, why I did judge quite a few livestock shows myself, and in retrospect, probably made as many mistakes as one could think in doing that. But also, I always went back to the fact that these students that I had at North Dakota State, they were just so well grounded, and the people were so well grounded that I was fortunate to feel that I was able to stay, if you want to call it, grounded in my evaluation of these particular livestock. And so I saw the Chicago International. It was I saw it through the glory days. It was disappointing to see it decline to the point that it did, but it was just the times and the location, and the transition to Louisville has been, I think a good transition. And the same's true with the portrait gallery that's there as well.
Did the continental breeds sort of replace some of the British cattle that were at Chicago? Did the show get bigger? Did the show get smaller? Like, towards the end, was it just, the part of town it was in was deteriorating, or why did it leave?
Basically, if I think I have the date right. The original international was established in 1900, and the key uh, establishment organization was the Union Stockyards. and they financially supported it. They put up buildings. They did, it was, and during the time period from the 1900s up until, when the decline started, why they said that was the busiest square mile in the world in terms of, and millions of head of livestock went through there. So it was the deterioration, or it was not the deterioration, it was the decline as far as Chicago, as far as the terminal market is concerned, because as I say, it closed in 1971, and then finally was because of the lack of support from the industries around there. Why then it was when it closed in 1975. So, but like I say, I went there. I only missed it. I went in there and worked, and I'll share an anecdote with you a little bit. I was on my way in there, but this was when I was in high school. I got on the train at Iowa Falls, Iowa, and got off the train at Grand Central Station, and then got on a bus and rode it down to 43rd and Halstead, where the International was. It was not the best part of town, but anyway, I always tell people that the south side of Chicago, you know who lives in the south side of Chicago? Leroy Brown, and he's the baddest guy in the whole darn town. And I rode a bus down there. So, but I just loved going in there and being with that group of people as well. So,
Well, thanks, Bert, for joining us on this episode. And for those that don't know, Bert and I worked together for a number of years, and always looked up to him as a mentor and a friend in the industry. So appreciate you being on the Iowa Beef Collective.
thank you so much, Patrick. I appreciate our friendship and the acquaintance that we've had. Yeah, thank you.
This institution is an equal opportunity provider. For the full non-discrimination statement or accommodation inquiries, go to www.extension.iastate.edu/legal.